Good morning, reflectors.
Good morning.
It's Reflection Friday, February 20th, and we're going to reflect on guilt. It has been a very interesting topic for me this week because I see how much both healthy guilt to some extent, because of course, if I'm not acting in alignment with my values or causing harm, I'm out of alignment with myself. And then also the false guilt and how it becomes this identity. It eats away at my heart and it's kind of vague. Oh, I did something wrong. I'm so bad. I get so out of alignment with self when I'm going through a shame storm of false guilt.
That's why we needed to look at guilt when we're talking about alignment, and especially as we're all learning to choose self-alignment. When we choose self-alignment, we do have to let go of some patterns that are no longer serving us. False guilt doesn't serve us. Healthy guilt does. False guilt does not serve us.
Healthy guilt is a signal to us like, oh, you're heading in the wrong direction. But false guilt, what I've also noticed, and we can reflect on this as we get into today's reflection, I find then I overcorrect. I'm looking and using someone else's expectations to measure myself against. And then when I say, oh, I'm not living up to their expectations, or that maybe they're disappointed in me, maybe they're not happy with me, then I could overcorrect even further away from alignment with myself.
I think that happens, Ada. Like, that's to me a true example of living out of alignment, because when we live out of alignment, we overgive, we overfunction. That's why, if you haven't thought about whether or not you want to join us with the study with Terry Cole's book, Too Much, think about that. If you want to get the book, you don't have to have the book, but we will be going through Terry Cole's book, Too Much. And she talks about overfunctioning codependency. We thought that this was kind of a natural progression in what we're doing, because overgiving, overfunctioning, overaccommodating, what that does when we're living out of alignment, we start to think that self-sacrifice is safety. And we start to think that if I align with myself, that I'm going to risk my relationships. As we get healthier, we're seeing that we're disrupting established roles. Well, I'm just the person that goes along to get along. And then we start doing this work. We listened, we noticed, now we're starting to align with self. And then we're saying, hey, wait, I don't have to be the person who swallows what they're feeling in order for you to feel okay about me. And maybe we start speaking up. And when the role gets disturbed, we can start panicking. But what we want to do is we want to work through that panic. That's why we're going to spend a whole month on high-functioning codependency, because whether you believe you're high-functioning codependent or not, you're going to learn a lot in March when we go through that. But we have these roles. Well, I'm just the quiet one, and I just let everyone do. And then one day we start speaking up for our truth and what's really true for us, and other people can go, well, what's going on with you? You mean you have an opinion? We don't like your opinion. And that's when this can become a little scary, but it must be done, because we can only live out of alignment for so long before it starts taking a toll on our nervous system, on our health, and on our relationships.
I don't want to make a blanket statement here. It's just something I've noticed for myself. I don't need to get into it too much, but when I get ticked off, looking at so many of those times, I was out of alignment with myself, mostly in false guilt, and then I was getting upset because I was out of alignment with myself, and I didn't think I could ever meet other people's expectations of me. So I think we can start to check in with ourselves and look for patterns in our life. Look at what comes up over and over and over in ourselves and in our relationships with other people. What are these things that just keep happening? And when we look at it, is that a signal that we can use to say, am I being out of alignment with myself right here? Because a lot of my anger was being out of alignment with myself. And that's not then to excuse if I'm angry and I violate my own values or cause harm. I still, in those moments, should, I would say, maybe should's too strong of a word for some, but I would say there's still healthy guilt there because that's not how I want to show up. And also, part of taking responsibility for the situation is checking in and saying, where is this coming from? Where is the upset coming from? Where's the frustration? What's the pain point? What's the origin of it? Is this really how I want to show up? Does this match the situation? Is it them or is it me? Or is it just me being out of alignment with myself? I think this is what other people expect of me and I should be doing this, but I don't really want to, but I should be doing this. So then I burst because it's just too much.
Well, that's where when you recognize that and then you choose to live from the place of self-alignment, there's going to be guilt involved in most cases because it's so foreign to how we've been showing up. When we think about choosing self-alignment and breaking patterns, like I've allowed you to treat me this way, or I've allowed myself to show up in a way that isn't as honest as it needs to be or isn't honest. As we're breaking those patterns, we need to be kind of hyper vigilant about when guilt comes up, is it healthy or is it false? Healthy guilt is when we violate our own values. When we lie to keep the peace, there's both going on because we can feel guilty for lying and then at the same time, so that's our own values. And then to keep the peace, well, that's false guilt because we shouldn't be lying to keep the peace.
Right, because what we're lying about, we're saying if I tell the truth in this situation, the answer will violate this other person's expectations of me. That's bad and I shouldn't do that. So then we lie, then violate our own values to not violate their expectations of us.
Right. We have to kind of step back and unpack it and say, well, there might be some healthy guilt here, but there's also false guilt. I don't want to show up as a person who lies, but also what's going on in this situation that I have to lie in order for you to like me? That's not good. But then if I continually think to myself, well, if I weren't so stupid, they would like me. If I weren't so sensitive, they would feel better about me. If I would just work harder, I would please them. That's the false guilt part. And it becomes insidious because we probably are not just isolating this to one relationship. When we start doing that, ruminating about how bad we are, or how we should be different, or never forgiving ourselves for a mistake that we've made, and we just keep going on and on and on and on. It's like, oh, okay, this is why this is happening because I made a mistake over here. All the mental gymnastics that we can engage in, that's false guilt. We've got to watch this when we're starting to break the habit of not living in alignment with ourselves. The more we live in alignment with ourselves, the stronger we're going to feel, the more honest we're going to live. But as we're making that shift, guilt is going to be part of the equation. And the reason I know guilt is going to be part of our equation, because if we would have been able to do this before, we would have done it before. So there's some overgiving, there's some overfunctioning, there's some overaccommodating that is part of our lived experience. Otherwise, we would have been living in alignment before. But for most of us, we've been living out of alignment until we start thinking about this.
And what a blessing it is that we get this opportunity to learn to live in alignment. That's what I think about when I look back on my life in the times, whether I violated my own values and caused harm, which I didn't want to do, or I've been racked with false guilt. Looking at those times, and then I can say, I'm so thankful I have the awareness that I got to choose again, that I got to do something different. Doesn't always take away the full burn of, I wish I didn't do that. But it eases it so much that at least I have this awareness now. And I never get to do that again. I don't have to live that way anymore. I get to choose again and do something different.
I love the descriptors that we've used this week because even though we've only been talking about this for a few days, I am even becoming more clear. Okay, this is healthy guilt because I violated my own boundaries. Oh, I can see myself going into false guilt, and that typically is thoughts, these perseverating thoughts. I'm having these perseverating thoughts, and I'm able to distinguish between the guilts because guilt just feels like guilt. But then you say, oh no, this is healthy guilt, and we don't want to just let guilt go and say, don't ever feel guilty, because there's healthy guilt. There's things that we need to feel guilty about. But then also the perseverating thoughts that go over and over and over, I'm able to catch myself and say, well, this is actually false guilt. So hopefully we're all practicing and applying these descriptors to what can just feel like overwhelming guilt. Let's get a little more particular now. Is this healthy guilt or is this false guilt? Am I violating my own values here? Or am I worried because I don't think I'm meeting your expectations or that I failed you in some way? Those are different.
So our intention for today and for this weekend is I will practice differentiating between healthy guilt and false guilt. I will practice differentiating between healthy guilt and false guilt.
And this will help all of us on our journey to alignment with self.
Thank you so much for joining us today and this week. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you Monday.
See you then.